The Nazi death camp of Subibo was established in southeastern Poland in the spring of 1942 as part of a program to exterminate Jews in Europe. The camp existed for less than a year and a half, but during this time, approximately 250,000 Jews from Poland and other European countries were murdered. The escape from the Subibo death camp depicts the harrowing experiences of Jewish prisoners of one of the Nazi death camps and their courageous attempt to escape from this horrific place. The beginning of a Nazi concentration camp that specialized in the incarceration, exploitation, and beating of Jews. The trains carrying Jews arrived to gain the trust of the people. They even prepared an orchestra to stir up the joyful atmosphere to welcome them. But was the truth as glamorous as its appearance? The last train arrived when the people had just arrived. The evil people promised a future of food and clothing without worrying about hardship or misery. There were even beautiful girls who posed freely. Let them capture the moment, but was the truth really like that? They used the excuse of cleanliness to prevent epidemics. The German army let the girls take off all their belongings and clothes and put them all in a room to be disinfected. The air valve was turned on. That was when the inhumanity of the fascists was revealed. They brutally eliminated all the women who had no value labor. Now they are just white corpses lying on top of each other, looking both scary and pitiful. Not only that, these villains also brazenly robbed everyone of their money and property. They happily divided up valuable items, admiring their own achievements. But in fact, they were the efforts of others. But somewhere, there were people who did not accept their fate of being mistreated. They cut the fence to escape. Unfortunately, ahead of the road was a large minefield. Most people did not die because of the gunmen guarding the road, but they also died because of this cruel trap. Only one lucky boy managed to get through the minefield, but he could not escape, so he was buried here. They still weren't satisfied. The fascists randomly chose a few raw people to kill and show off as long as someone escaped, no matter how that person was, alive or dead, but surely someone else would have to die with them. This time, the Nazis chose 10 raw people to kill. A brutal massacre took place. Raw witnessed the horror of that. Those who intended to escape almost all gave up their intention. They thought it was better to be imprisoned than to lie cold on the ground. Only Jacob hated and shouted at these people for being cowards. They made his wife Ra go away forever, but there was a group of prisoners who were afraid that he would cause trouble and implicate others, so they dragged Jacob down and taught him a lesson. The following days, their lives weren't much easier. There was a guy who just didn't drink the glass of wine the commander named Rupp offered simply because this was taboo in the religion he was following. So this guy immediately took belt and whipped him continuously. He forced him to count each hit. He counted clearly and loudly and had to count correctly, or else he would start over. A brutal beating was thrown at the poor guy. Another commander, Berliner, had a more perverted hobby. He forced the two of them to kiss in front of him. Feeling dissatisfied, he would scream like a madman. Before, this guy used to love a Jewish woman, but his father hated Jews. He forced him not to marry her. Now, a pain always haunts him, and he screams like he's losing his mind. This for whom he had to massacre the people of the person he loved. In that moment of madness, another prisoner witnessed everything. Although he had returned to his position, but it seemed Berliner had no intention of pretending to ignore him while he was working. He was called back by Berliner and told that within 5 minutes, if he could not cut down the big tree here, he would massacre everyone here. Hearing the commander say that the guy glanced at Berliner without saying anything, his hand swung the axe blow by blow. Minute by minute, 2 minutes, 4 minutes, 30 seconds passed. He successfully cut down the tree, saving everyone from Berliner's gun barrel. Where there is oppression, there is struggle. That is the law of life. In the miserable prison, there was a group of people who gathered enough troops to revolt. The person who was capable of this important position was Zasha. Even though he heard people say that, he still refused because he had previously led a group of people to escape from a concentration camp. The result of that escape was failure. Everyone who Zaksa led died. After that time, Zaksa no longer had enough courage to lead another escape. He refused many calls, and this time the answer he gave did not change. He just thought that if he was patient, he could live in peace. Until one day they received news that the Nazis had massacred and burned more than 100 people. The unfortunate boy Slomo was found by a German and asked for help. He was a skilled and promising workshop worker. He brought some bones and some gold to him and asked him to cast them into jewelry to wear. Slomo was scared but did not dare to refuse. He reluctantly completed the job. The people in the workshop saw it and wondered why a young boy kept getting drunk like that. But the truth was that few people could do what he did. It did not stop there. The next morning, a convoy of cars was coming. These were prisoners from another prison prison and were taken to that area, which was about to be liberated by the Soviet Red Army. They thought they would be free, but the fascist barbarians would rather kill all the Jews than let them go. They were truly inhumane. In their eyes, human life was not even as good as the grass and trash on the side of the road. They gave themselves the right to trample on human life without mercy. After that corpse cleaning session, the prisoners here knew that they were about to face the same situation. They once again discussed whether they should make a plan to escape. Some people thought they should wait for the Soviet Red Army to come to rescue them, but another man appeared. He said that the prisoners who had passed away this morning were also because the Soviet Red Army was about to come to rescue them. Some people saw his appearance and immediately became angry because he was the closest to the Germans. This time, he was standing here because of the plan to escape. Zaxa looked straight at him, his eyes determined, showing no deception. He was a physics teacher, so he could freely go back and forth in the enemy's headquarters. They would take advantage of that to eliminate the ringleaders first. But to do that, they needed weapons. Zaxa informed Mozet to find bullets. Although it was very difficult, he also thought of a way to ask the women to help him get them. Among them, only Party was brave enough to do it. She successfully got a magazine, but was caught by the soldier. He unexpectedly discovered that she had hidden it in his chest. He immediately shouted and questioned her about where she got this thing. Party was still panicking when suddenly she was rescued by someone in the team. He rushed over and strangled Kia to death in the shock of the party. When they heard the news, Zaxa also didn't know how to handle the situation, so he could only speed up the plan before everything fell apart. The physics teacher in charge of prolonging the times and the rest would listen. According to the plan he had divided, the small ones would act as bait for the enemy, the cowards would distract their attention, and the bold ones would kill the enemy directly. After discussing the plan, he hadn't even had time to breathe when the alarm bell rang again. He thought that another person had escaped from prison and hoped that the whole team wouldn't have to say goodbye to this life. It turned out that today they were going to welcome another fascist army to visit. These guys were just as cruel as the blood of the Jews that they only saw as a puddle of water in the middle of the road. They laughed loudly in fear. The hatred was burning deep inside each prisoner kneeling here that day. The fascists had all kinds of debauchery. They used prisoners to pull the cart instead of horses, while they themselves sat in the back, continuously throwing blows and smiling wildly with glee. Those who were too weak to pull the cart anymore could only get shot and lie cold on the ground, and so that night became a horrible nightmare. Zaxa also almost lost his life that night, but luckily he still held on just one more night. Just had to wait until tomorrow. Everyone would be freed from the nightmare. The next morning, the slow-mo boy would be the one to lure the officers who liked to show off to the tailor shop. He said he had just made a super nice leather jacket. This soldier heard it was like he had struck gold while he was happily trying on the jacket. Bazit from behind suddenly rushed up and attacked, grabbed the gun and pointed it at his head. This guy not only didn't know fear, he arrogantly said, "You're making a little noise." Not letting this guy be complacent for a second longer, he immediately took a hammer and continuously hit the officer's body. Until he was completely silent, he called everyone to go clean up the body to continue seducing the fascist was unlucky because he didn't like this shirt very much. But fortunately, Morset successfully begged him to stay and try it on because it looked very suitable for him. Following the soldier earlier, he also received a hammer from Boris and then died. Next was the officer named Wutner. Knowing that this guy had a passion for shoes, they also used it to lure him. An unexpected incident happened. This guy took a chair and moved to another place, sitting out of everyone's plans, making it difficult for Boris to take action. They couldn't let the plan go wrong. They quickly solved Wutner with a scissor to the back of the neck. God also didn't want to help the evil guy when he screamed in pain. A flock of ducks walked past the house, making quite a loud noise until he collapsed. Fortunately, the plan still went according to its trajectory. Next, Theo was the most important part of the plan. Slow-mo carefully entered the room of the gun store guard, although he was quite nervous. But for the future of the innocent lives out there, he decisively struck a fatal blow, successfully taking down this soldier. Then Slow-mo conveniently brought the gun back for everyone. Coincidentally, the alarm bell rang again. Everyone also had to quickly run away. Only Zaxa was able to hold Theo a gun in case of an emergency. Blinner looked down at where everyone was standing. He wondered why today there were too few prisoners, and where were the other officers? Suddenly, Blinner screamed and fell down. Someone shot him from the window. It was Somo. The soldiers on guard saw the movement and continuously fired in the direction the bullet flew towards Zaxa, took advantage of the chaos to shoot down the two guards. Then he shouted loudly. Everyone quickly ran to the main door and continued. He used his gun to shoot the soldiers to help everyone escape. A few other people in the team chose to stay. Mr. Dung sacrificed himself to destroy this cruel group. The rest led the group to break the door and rush straight outside. When the iron door collapsed to the ground, that was also the moment when more than 300 oppressed Jews officially ran to freedom. They rushed towards the gate and destroyed the iron fence, the fragile boundary between the right to live of a human being and the existence of a beast. Berlina was not dead yet, but in the end, he could only helplessly helplessly watched the people he imprisoned run past him, wave after wave, without being able to do anything. The fascists still made everyone shudder because of their bloodthirsty savagery. When happy, they are lucky to be spared. When unlucky, when sad, they will brutally beat and torture people. People silently endure it because they hope that one day they will be free. Based on a true story about the mass escape from the Subibo extermination camp during World War II, the brutality of the Nazis is once again clearly exposed. The authentic footage also depicts the ultimate pain and humanity, the solidarity and efforts of the Jewish people. In reality, only 53 people survived the escape. The fate of the remaining prisoners. 170 people were captured by the Nazis while they were hiding in the forest. Some others died of exhaustion and hunger. All those captured and 130 people who remained in the camp were executed. The price of war was truly too high.